for Christmases after deaths. My dad died on the 1st of December, so that would have been perhaps the first. And then there was the year in 1969 when my two brothers were killed just ahead of Christmas. And you've probably heard that story a dozen times. And and we were in the choir, and Joe Shamo came and sat with my mom in church. I invited her
like
to go.
Cousin Joe?
Big Joe, his dad.
His dad. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And after I don't know, we had a fairly good sized choir at that time. And afterwards, Mom said, "I don't know how you did it, but it was beautiful." But my feeling was that I had to do it because Harold Norvine would have wanted us to go and sing. I couldn't not go. And then I was trying to think, there was another one that had a great deal of weight. But yeah, we've had so many deaths in December that Christmas, as always, you just can't get away from that.
The year Christmas after Dad died, after Grandpa died, you were having a moment, and I remember Patrick told you that if it would make you feel any better, he would come over to the house and take apart a perfectly good, brand new string of Christmas lights to repair the burned out bulbs in the old ones, which was what Dad would do.
Putting the tree lights on was an episode. And we finally would just leave the tree and the lights and Grandpa, and we all went to some other rooms until he would come and say that, they all lit. And but the year after Grandpa died was a different one. You guys went to New York, I think, because I went to Florida.
You went to Florida. We stayed home. We were going to go, but I think the weather turned bad and we decided to stay. That was the year we all dressed up and had the formal Christmas dinner. And that was the infamous Christmas dinner where
it was the first time I got drunk.
Yeah. We had given the kids some wine cooler to toast.
A shot glass full, mind you. Barely anything.
In the fine little crystal from Patrick, from Cena's dad's mother, so Cena's granny. And we did a toast, and before we knew it, she took the fragile little glass and shot it behind her head and shattered it. And we're like, okay. And then a little bit later, we wanted to do another little toast, and we thought, well, we had already told her, no, Cena, you can't do that. And gave her another glass, which was our mistake, and she promptly threw it at another wall. And then when everyone else got down from the table, she went around and finished off the little glasses of her brother and sister and anything else left in the bottle, and then slept for like 12 hours. Or
didn't I eat a bunch of ham?
And you ate a bunch of turkey.
Turkey. I was in a tryptophan and wine cooler coma.
It was peaceful. And then I think there was the one Christmas when Aunt Cindy came and we all got sick. And it was snowy. And I felt so bad because she wanted to do stuff and we were all sick. Like, and she had to go back home. And, and it was like, there we all were, the five of us, like, oh, we wanted to do stuff, but we couldn't. And so,
In comparison, my hardest Christmas, I want to say it was the first Christmas that Andrew and I spent together because it was my first Christmas away from home. And it was something that I didn't really want to be away from home, but it was unseen forces making things happen. And I remember sitting in my in-laws, they have like stairwell down into their living room. And I sat there for a moment and I was looking around at all these people who, while I loved them, were still new to my life.
mm-hmm.
And I had homesickness like I had never experienced before in my life. And I was also incredibly poor at that time. And I couldn't afford to buy anyone presents. And I remember either calling you or I feel like I may have called you at one point, Grandma. It was Christmas Eve with my in-laws. I called someone because I was so homesick. I just needed to hear someone's voice for a little bit. So that was one of my hardest Christmases. I remember I was so distraught about so many things. My sister gave me a Christmas present early because, bless her sweet heart, she just wanted me to be happy. That's all she ever wants. So
yep.
Teresa's the big sissy of big sissies.
Yeah.
But I think that was my hardest Christmas.
And this year is her first Christmas.
This year's her first Christmas from home. And all I can say is I understand, girl, but it's okay.
And you're going to have a blast.
Yes.
You will be.
This episode drops on the day she flies. So I'm hoping she is able to download it so she can listen to it while she's flying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm always a person who kind of wants to try to end on a high note. Do you have an absolute favorite Christmas? Mom, I know which one yours is. Please tell it.
I have two, but if it's the one that I think you're thinking of, it's the year that your dad and I had a little bit of extra.
Yes.
And we were not rich. And there were years we struggled, and thanks to the many friends and families got us through Christmases when we couldn't afford much more than a few simple things, coloring books for the kids. People came through big time for us. Yeah. But this one year, we had money, and I was able to give the kids the Christmas that I had wanted to give them. I wanted to give them one really good Christmas. And I had wanted to give them each, along with their presents, I wanted to give them some cash. So I was actually looking for Jack in the Boxes that would pop out, and I was going to, my initial thought was to tape like $100 bill to its hand so that when it pops out, the money would pop up. But I couldn't find a bloody Jack in the Box anywhere. So I came across this idea, and I found 3 Slinkies. And people who know me know that I love Slinkies, and that they drive Cena's dad insane, because I will sit there with a Slinky and just go shing, 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 shing back and forth with my hands and make that noise, and it drives him nuts. So I took the slinky and I took the cash and I broke it down into a series of 1s, 5s, 10s, 20. Did I have a 50 in there? I can't remember.
I don't remember either.
I can't remember how I did it, but I opened the boxes and I put the money into the spring, into the little layers of the spring, and then tucked it back in. And I really didn't wrap it. I put it in their stocking, if I'm not mistaken.
You put it back in the slinky box, and then you put it in the stocking.
In the stocking.
But in the stocking was also, so we always got or get the Smash orange chocolates.
Oh, yeah.
That's the star of the Christmas stocking, in my opinion. And that was a year you actually bought all of us one instead of just the family one.
Right.
So we were into the chocolate.
They were into the chocolate and into all the other presents that they had gotten, having a really good time. And I'm just dying because not one of them had opened the slinky.
And you kept talking about it. Like, doesn't one of you want to open up your slinky? And we're like, why would we want to open up the slinky?
We got chocolate. We've got other things to play with, this, that, and the
mom's
other.
like, open the slinky.
And so finally, Therese was the one who kind of got the initial hint. And she opens her box rather quietly. And then all you hear is, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then Patrick's like, what? Wait, and Tree starts pulling this out and he like grabs his and opens his and he's like, oh, and then Cena grabbed hers. And then I hadn't even told their father what I was doing, because he was like, you got them slinkies. Oh my, And so that I think was probably one of the funnest ones.
Oh, I remember one of us goes, it's $100. And
he's like, what?
What?
So they had each gotten $100 in cash. And so they were, it was a lot of fun. And
so what's your other best Christmas?
I think one of my funnest Christmas was the year that I had gotten. I'm a big tomboy, still am, even though I have a husband and children. I had gotten, I'm dating myself way back, Billy Blastoff, which was, and I know for some people that does not sound like an appropriate name now, but mind you, I was a child during the 70s and the moon flight, and the landings on the moon. And he was a little astronaut kid that had a little Land Rover and a little cart that pulled a car. He had a little pack, a little ray gun, and he had a crawler. He could do stuff, not just sit there. You put his little batteries in his little pack and set them in these things, and they would drive around and ride around. And the other thing was this track that went together with a little kind of rocket, and you could build it, and it had turnstiles on the end where it would turn itself around and go back through the track. And I played that forever. That was like one of my favorite Christmases for toys.
What about you, Grandma? Do you have a favorite Christmas?
Well, I guess probably the most important Christmas was in 1950 when Grandpa and I and our cousin Rita and her husband Al went to midnight mass at St. Joseph's in Canton. And our plan was to exchange rings during the Eucharistic prayer of the Mass, consecrate ourselves to each other. So I got Grandpa's ruby ring off my finger quite well and onto his finger. But my diamond didn't want to come off Grandpa's finger. So there we are, tugging and wiggling and squiggling. And pretty soon everybody